The Empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
When I first got online and I seen the price of the X2 and the DNA Force, I was a little hesitant, but I pulled the trigger on it. It has changed my life. I've been taking it for about 24 days now, counting the weight, staying in shape.
InfoWarsLife.com. You've heard the callers to the show.
Several months back, I started taking your Nathan Iodine and your Super Meal. Prior to this, I was barely walking. Now I'm able to function as a human again.
Whether it's Survival Shield, Nascent Iodine, or DNA Force, Super Male Vitality, Super Female Vitality, Lung Cleanse, Fluoride Shield, Oxy Powder. I believe that all of these products will blow you away like they've done the thousands of other customers that have visited InfoWarsLife.com.
Dash 2, just amazing what it's able to do to actually detox the body. It's great stuff.
If I'm going to promote something, it's got to be something I personally use and that I believe in. Check out InfoWarsLife.com today and the entire line of groundbreaking, cutting-edge, hardcore products.
Using unparalleled research in the development of a synergistic formulation based around the key concepts of super oxygenation, the next level in cleansing is here. With key ingredients backed by real clinical studies, the new Oxy Powder, available through InfoWars Life, was invented during Dr. Group's research on the toxification of our bodies. Many herbal colon cleansers are harsh on the body and contain cheap and potentially dangerous ingredients, oftentimes full of synthetic fillers, GMOs, additives, or worse. Gently start cleaning your body with easy capsules that start working while you sleep. Oxy Powder does not require time off work, and there's no need for bad-tasting concoctions. Instead, Oxy Powder slowly releases monoatomic oxygen into the intestinal tract and body. Experience the astonishing cleansing power of superoxide and ozonide technology. Go to InfoWarsLife.com or InfoWarsStore.com to get started with Oxy Powder, or call 1-888-253-3139.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day.
We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system, or call 1-888-253-3139.
We are on the march. The Empire is on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight in Austin. Paul Joseph Watson is joining us in the UK. And we're going to be going in just a moment to our reporters in Ferguson, Missouri. We have Joe Biggs and Jakari Jackson, who've been there all week awaiting the grand jury verdict. And there's been some action there last night. We're going to talk to them about that and what they see on the ground. Before we do, I want to let you know that this hour of the Alex Jones Show is brought to you by Silver Bullet. It's now back. We had run out of it. It's now in limited supply. Get it right now because it takes about 6 weeks to get more of it in. It's going to sell out pretty quickly. It's a difficult, long process to make this because we use a very high concentration. It's concentrated to 30 parts per million in a pure base of deionized water. So it's a very involved process involving high voltage electrical process that generates minute-sized particles. It's widely known that colloidal silver is a vital supplement for maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and now we have it at InfoWarsLife.com for a short period of time. It takes colloidal silver to get to the next level using a cutting-edge technique that is free of toxic artificial additives. There's never been a more important time, this time of year, especially with the flu season, cold season, many viruses circulating around. It's never been a more important time to have this powerful and clean form of colloidal silver. You can get it at InfoWarsLife.com, or you can call 888 888-253-3139. That's 888-253-3139. That's Silver Bullet. Now we're going to go to our reporters in Ferguson, but before we do, I wanted to just finish up. I cut off Bob in Texas real quick. He had just brought up something he wanted to talk about. Go ahead, Bob. You still on the line?
I am.
Yes, go ahead. What did you want to say about that?
You've heard about the Christmas truce. I don't know if everybody
Yes.
knows about that during
Yes.
World War I when the soldiers decided they were going to put down their arms and not kill each other anymore.
There's been some
They
good
actually
movies
had to
made about
replace
that.
Those soldiers, the generals and stuff had to replace those soldiers because they wouldn't kill each other anymore. That's what we need to see, David, is more people on the inside who are serving this system to stand up and say no. It's just like all these pilots who are spraying us with all these chemtrails every day. They need to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yes.
That's what is most disappointing me, to see the people who continue to serve this evil.
That's right. And, you know, when you talk about that, and the reason I wanted to come back to you was because we just had the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and it was soldiers at the border who refused to shoot people who wanted to cross. And who were the people that were showing up there? There were people who were coming from prayer meetings in churches where they had been meeting for 7 years in some cases, turning out by the tens of thousands, finally having enough. So, yeah, it's going to take a spiritual revival. It's going to take people who are the instruments of the oppressors to say, I'm not going to be their tool anymore, and stand up to them. Thank you so much for calling Bob in Texas. We need to move on to our reporters in Ferguson, Missouri. We've got Joe Biggs there on the ground. Joe, what have you guys been seeing the last couple of days? You filed a report last night about some small riots.
Joe Biggs, we are actually on South Florissant Avenue, right across from the police station and the fire department in Ferguson, Missouri. Yes, last night I got a call around 8:45 saying that there was a standoff between protesters and police officers here right between the police station and the fire department. There's a little barricade set up over there, and the police were standing behind there. By the time we got here, there were maybe 65 officers in, I would say, lower grade riot gear with just the shields, and some having face masks with a gas mask on their side. So 65 police officers to about 100 protesters that were here. Now, the interesting thing that happened last night, though, everybody was over off of the road on the other side where the grass is, and the police officers were behind the barricade. Well, they came around from the other side of the barricade and then started pushing the protesters into the road. Now, they were just told 30 minutes prior to that, if they get in the road, that would be considered unlawful and that the police would use force. The police came out and pushed us all into the road and then began arresting people in the street.
Hey, it sounds like what happened in the JFK 50th commemoration last year when they told everybody that was there in the crowd with InfoWars, gave them access into an area and then sent the goons out to attack them.
Yeah, they pushed us out, and Jakari Jackson and I were walking backwards filming, and they're like, get out of here, get out of here. And I'm like, well, where do you want us to go? They're like, go to the road. Then as soon as we went to the road, the police ran out and just started snatching people up and then pushing them behind their line to where they would be arrested or whatever, or released, soon. So it was crazy. They pushed us into an area that was unlawful so they could just go out and arrest people. I've never seen that. That was just crazy.
It's just amazing. And, that's one of the things that really concerns me about this. We have seen so many cases of police brutality. We were talking earlier in the program to Arnold Abbott, the 90-year-old veteran who's been feeding the homeless in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. And we're talking about the many ways that they have come against the homeless, beating Kelly Thomas to death, shooting others in New Mexico and Michigan. And yet, in Ferguson, what they've done is they've not made it about the rules of engagement when it is allowed for the police to use lethal force or what level of force they should use. Instead, they have successfully taken over this thing and made it all about race, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. I mean, you hear a lot of talks, on the social media, a lot of chatter about how blacks are calling for the deaths of whites, how whites are calling, from the KKK for the deaths of blacks and things like that. They're trying to create this racial diversion to take away from the point that people originally came out here for. And it's getting so much, global attention that it's causing these uprisings, with protests all over. And now they're expecting that when the grand jury decision comes out, if the officer isn't charged, that there will be protests, in New York, Chicago, Detroit, L.A. You know, I heard an activist saying that what they're planning in L.A. is going to be 10 times worse than anything that anybody's ever seen. You know, and I can't say that it's just a lot of the bad police around here. Last night, I heard some very awful things from some of the protesters as well. One of the guys walked up to a police officer and said, "Hey," he's like, "I know that you have a daughter," and he said he was going to sodomize her. You know, that doesn't help the problem whatsoever. You know, when you're out here and it's 65 to 100, and so far it's pretty calm and quiet, you know, and then you go out and you're doing that, you're provoking. I mean, what kind of action, what kind of response do you expect to happen from the police officer?
Well, you know,
when you're
Joe,
threatening their daughters.
Yeah, they use agent provocateurs on both sides of the fence, don't they? And, of course, what the police did last night was very provocative. Tonight on the Nightly News, Darren McBreen is going to be interviewing Larry Pinckney. Of course, he was with the the original Black Panthers. And as he's pointed out many times in interviews with us, when they came against them was when they started uniting the entire community, when they were no longer just focused on black people, but they were uniting everybody in the community. That's when they got really dangerous. And the interesting thing, and it's going to be on the Nightly News tonight, he got his FBI file. And in the FBI file, they talked about him being dangerous because he could appeal to both blacks and whites. That's the issue. If they can divide us by ethnicity, then they win. It's only when we can get them, when we can come after them and say, you're not going to have these kinds of rules of engagement. We need to have accountability with the police, and this is something that affects everybody, not just one ethnic group. I understand that black people have seen this far more than anybody else, and I think they understand that more than anybody else. The problem is that because of that, they're easily manipulated by the powers that be into thinking that this is simply a race war, and it is not.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's about police officers, you know, going out and doing these no-knock warrants, going out and killing young Americans of all races, you know, going in and throwing flashbangs and ripping a child's chest open and going to the wrong place. You know, anytime we have a war on drugs or a war on terrorism, all we do is make it worse. You know, this is like a war on race, and they're making it 10 times worse.
Yes. And I understand that in the war on drugs, the brunt of that has been borne by the poor people, by the inner city people, by the black people. The majority of them go to jail for marijuana when oftentimes you don't see that same kind of incarceration rate with white people. So I understand they've borne the brunt of that disproportionately, but this is something that is destroying the legal framework of the entire country for everyone. It's putting everyone in danger when we allow the government to assume these kind of authoritarian powers that we have allowed under the war on drugs, that we're allowing under terrorism. And now we're seeing these rules of engagement that the federal government is training local police departments to engage in. We see that there's no longer a restraint on the use of force. I've got Paul Joseph Watson on the line here, and I wanted to see if, Paul, do you have any questions for Joe that you wanted to ask him about what's going on in Ferguson?
Yeah, well, basically, obviously, we're expecting the grand jury to come to a decision tomorrow. That's not going to be announced until Sunday at the earliest, if they do come to that decision. So I just wanted to ask Joe, you know, we've got these reports about militant groups going after Officer Darren Wilson directly. We've got lists of targets, which include power substations, water treatment facilities. Joe, from being on the ground there back in August compared to now, do you expect there to be a similar level of violence in reaction to this expected acquittal, or do you think it's more likely to be more subdued this time?
Well, from the reaction of the police officers that I saw last night, they were, I would say, a little bit more well trained in how they did act and how they did approach people instead of just, you know, sporadically running out and like attacking the crowd like they did back in August. So I think there's going to be a different way that the police handle. But, you know, back in Halloween this year, they called him a vandal, and the local Fox News actually shut down a power area, and it shut down the power to the fire department and the police station here. So it seems like that was almost like a training exercise for something bigger to come. You know, I don't think it's too far-fetched that a militant group could shut down the Emerson Electric Company, which is just right up the road a couple miles. So I expect things to be bad, but I don't know if they will be as bad as in August. And when I say that, I mean that in the amount of people coming out, because if you guys remember back in August, At one point, there was like 3,000 people out in the streets. I don't think it's going to be like that because it was unorganized. This time you have more well-organized